just approval. We'll call our meeting to order for the Village Council on Thursday, July 13th. If you would all please rise, we'll pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here tonight. If you would, Brian, if you would do our roll call, please.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Mike is absent.
Bing Garbett is not here tonight. He called and talked to me. This is the first night of their vacation Bible school, and he felt that he needed to be there. So if we wish, we can grant him a reprieve from tonight. So we need a motion to that effect.
Make that motion.
We have a motion from Mike to excuse him for tonight's meeting. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
By Nancy. Let's do a roll call vote, please, Brian.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
This will be the time for our public comment. We have one person in our audience. Mr. Anderson, do you wish to address council?
I would.
Okay. Please introduce yourself if you would.
Is this on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mark, I think you have to hit that blue button.
Yeah. So,
There you go.
Hello, my name is Mark Robert Anderson. I was on this council about 2 or 3 months ago. I resigned. As I always say when I'm in the public speaking now, what a privilege it was to serve. It is a great honor to be on a council. Elected by the town or whoever gets elected. I want to make my comments short. In November, we're going to be voting for the mayor. And I made this comment the last time I spoke. I greatly, greatly, greatly encourage everyone to vote for Kelly Cornett. She has experience. She has connections. She knows what she's doing. And if something doesn't go her way, she won't get irate. The second thing I want to say is, and I mean this with the utmost respect and sincerity, there are very few people I would unbury from the dead to do their job. One of those is Ronald Reagan to be the president. The second would be Art Owens to be the administrator. And the third is my father to be my father and to teach me how to play golf and live with integrity and dignity and ethics. The third thing I want to talk about is job satisfaction. If someone isn't satisfied with their job in the village or doesn't think they get paid enough in the village, they need to quit, period. Don't bitch about it, quit. You know, it's always the same people bitching. If you don't think you're getting paid enough, quit. The town will go on just as well without you as with you. Quit. The last thing I want to say, and this is on a light note, when I was on council, I told Jerry Killam I would bring this up. Unfortunately, I forgot. I forgot. Let's take down the statue of U.S. Grant and let's put up a true Georgetown hero. Johnny Gallagher.
Thank you, Mark. We'll move on to our general business portion of our meeting. And we'll be looking in page 1 of our packet for the approval of the special session of council meeting minutes. You have them in front of you on page 1. We have a motion from Mike to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Steve. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Pardon me, Dale.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There is something I need to bring up with
Oh.
that, if that's okay.
Oh, yes, please do.
And I realize this is gonna look real picky, but I've made this mistake before and I don't want this to happen or cause a problem. There's a discrepancy in this, in these minutes and in the document that comes with it. At the bottom of this document on page 2 in our packet, it says the adjournment was, the meeting was adjourned at 8:20 PM. And in the transcript on page 136, it says that the meeting adjourned at 8:33 PM. And it's my understanding that like if it's not, those times have to match up, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not trying to be picky, but I think that's actually kind of important.
Well, she would probably have a more accurate time. The video is messing up that night, so the best I could come up with it was 8:20.
I'm not
So-
criticizing.
No,
Okay,
no, that's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
I wish I noticed it in there because that would help me figure that out. I was struggling to figure out what time it ended,
Yeah.
so I can correct that.
So we want to have the corrected time as what?
8:33.
8:33. Any thoughts about that, council members?
I think it needs to be accurate.
Okay, so let's, if we're going to approve these, we can start over with that corrected meeting adjourn time of being 8:33 PM. Is there anything else that needs to be amended? So we need a motion to amend the minutes
Make the motion to approve the minutes with Jeremy's suggested amendment of the
With-
time.
of 8:33.
Yes,
We
sir.
have that first from Steve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
By Michael. Let's do a roll call vote, Brian.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes. Next on our packet is our regular session of council on June the 22nd, which is on page 2. Once again, we would need to examine these minutes, see whether they're accurate, so we can either approve them or amend them as necessary. To be had, let's entertain a motion to pass them as written.
I'll make the motion.
By Nancy, do we have a second?
A second.
By Jeremy? Let's have a roll call vote.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Okay, very good. On page 6 of your packet is a review of the Emergency Services Committee meeting minutes from June the 22nd. I know members are here if they wish to give a briefing on that, they can. It's a short report. If anyone has questions, those members are here to ask them the questions.
We had discussed a quick update because we had an emergency services meeting today as well. Is now an appropriate time to give an update on that, Mayor, or would you rather?
I think it is because it parlays into that
Right.
first paragraph there. It's just a continuation of the review of the potential dog ordinances. Is that what you're going to discuss?
Is that okay? Do you go to that?
It's up to you. I'll give you, that's fine if you
Okay.
wish to do that.
Then just one quick update because this has been in the forefront for some people for some time. We were looking at the dog ordinance, the dog ordinance situation here in the village, as well as comparing it to others and how we might want to move forward. There was a lot of discussion about finding balance between what is even possible for the village to do and the rights of individuals to do what they would want to do on their own property, things like that. And just as a quick overview, the committee it appears we're going to be going more with an education style program to try to encourage people to be the best dog owners they possibly can. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be requiring any change in ordinance in the village. That the state statute on this is pretty much what is logically possible for us to deal with. But at the same time, we are very sensitive to the people who have been bringing us events that have happened in the village and that have been very difficult for them. And so we're going to move forward with an attempt to help people be better dog owners, better pet owners through education on how, what their responsibilities are and how they can best execute them. So more is going to be coming on this, but we are considering things about the possibility of putting up very brief posters at the sites where you would get your dog license. It had been mentioned about posting things on Facebook. It had been mentioning that posting, being able to send out information, even with our the billing program that we have, that the village uses. With the logic being, if we can work within a framework that we have that already exists here in the state, and yet still encourage people to be responsible dog owners. So I know people out there are waiting for information about this. We're moving forward with it, and more details will come in the future as we try to finalize what that would look like.
Anyone else wish to add any comment to that? If not, we will move on to page 7 is the Utilities Committee meeting minutes for your review. And again, Jeremy, I believe you're the chair of that, aren't you?
I am indeed.
If you wish to give us a little highlights, Cliff Notes version of that.
It was a fairly skimpy meeting today, but there is one item that I want to toss out to Art to make sure people are understanding about the entertaining week that we've had up at North Main Street with all that's going on, and Art has some clarification for us on that.
Yeah, there was some questions and comments on Facebook about the water main project that's going on North Main Street. The first 3 days of that have gone pretty rough. The first day, the crews hit a sewer lateral. The second day, they hit a gas main, and the third day, they hit an abandoned water service line. So some of the comments on Facebook and referred to the fact that perhaps the companies had not had 811 come out to do the utilities locating, but they did. That project was bid out by the village, so the village is not actually doing the work. Ford Development is doing the work, and they have not done anything wrong. There was just, they come out and they mark these things, but they're working on stuff that's been in the ground for 50 years probably. So not everything was mapped perfectly back then, and I'm sure that they're going to find other problems as they move down the street. But rest assured, all the laws are being followed that need to be followed. They're doing this professionally, and none of the things that have happened at this time are their fault. It's just these things happen on construction projects. I think this one sticks out a little bit because it's right in the middle of town, and it is going to be a lengthy project. So, we're all just going to have to be patient, and it will eventually finish up, and it'll be better for the village.
And there wasn't a whole lot else that happened in utilities, so it was a low-key day.
Okay, very good. In your packet on page 8 is an ordinance for the police chief's residence. Joe, if you wish to shed some light on this for us, please.
Yeah, the village received a request from Chief Freeland. He's very familiar with the ORC and what it requires. We've been fortunate during his tenure here in the village, where he's always lived in the village of Georgetown. It is not uncommon in most communities across Ohio that their police chief does not reside in the municipal corporation. We have other department heads here in the village that do not reside in the corporate limits. But unique to the Ohio Revised Code is this provision that I put in the ordinance 73715, which by Ohio statute does require the police chief to live within a village. And actually, he's not even a police chief. They call you the marshal. But they designate you the police chief. But like I said, we've been fortunate that Chief Freeland has always lived here in the village. However, He has made a request that that residency requirement be waived. And as you can see, that requires an ordinance, which is why we did it as an emergency, because if it was a resolution, we could do it in one reading. An ordinance is a little different, as you know, and so I did it as an emergency. I don't know if you want to say anything else on the matter, but it doesn't change anything related to Chief Freeland's employment. All it does is it would allow him to no longer have to physically reside in the village during his tenure here as police chief.
We would need, Kelly, for you to read this by title only, please.
And Kelly, I made a mistake. That's why I paused when I was reading this. I just realized in the title, we need to add "and declaring an emergency." I have it in the body of the text.
At the end,
Yes, but we need to add that.
and declaring an emergency.
So,
An ordinance authorizing Robert Freeland to reside outside of the village of Georgetown while employed as the village police chief and declaring an emergency.
Comments, questions?
I always thought it was illegal to make them live, I mean, I just always thought it was illegal anyway, because they used to try to make teachers live in villages, and that became illegal. I mean, I have no problem with it because I thought he wasn't required to anyway.
if I may, in the 1980s, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that residency requirements for nearly every other position in municipal government were unconstitutional. However, the legislature, for whatever reason and all of their wisdom, decided that in villages, the police chief should reside in the village.
That's just in villages too, right? They didn't.
Yes, it's only villages. And I will also point out to you that in some very small villages, it's very difficult
No
to
kidding.
find. And one of the villages that we represent, they wanted to hire someone and they could not find a house because of the current housing stock problem that we're experiencing in our country. So it is not uncommon for legislative bodies to waive this requirement, particularly if you have a long-serving police chief as we have with Chief Freeland. So,
Any other questions, comments?
Just a comment. This once again underscores the wisdom that people before me and other people that were here necessarily, or the ones that were here that were involved in it and in setting up a charter in our village where we can take what's an outdated, not making sense law, maybe that's in the ORC, and deviate from it or make our own, in essence, to do what suits our situation. Entirely in favor of it, obviously, so.
This is exclusively just for Chief Robert Freeland. This doesn't mean all chiefs. If in the future another chief wishes to reside elsewhere, we would have to pass a separate ordinance for that individual as well.
Do we have any other employees with that rule?
Chief Rocky is out of town.
No, I mean, do we have any that are required to live in the village? None?
No, under mine, it just says they would prefer that in a
Right.
certain amount of time that,
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
say that.
And
We
that
can't.
was because when Kelly Jones was here, he had to move into town. Yeah, I think the same thing with Tyler. Yeah. So it's been recently changed in some capacity. Okay. Any other comments? If not, if this is your desire, then we would need a motion to approve this ordinance
as amended.
Make that.
as amended with declaring an emergency.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion by Michael. Do we have a second on that? Second by Nancy. Let's do a roll call vote, please, Brian.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
That's 1344.
1344.
We don't have to do a separate emergency vote. It's just, okay, because it's written in there.
Yeah, we had it as amended for that. Okay, on page 10 of your packet is a municipal utilities ordinance. And Art, I will let you go forth with that if you would.
yeah, this utility ordinance change, there's basically two changes in there. The Utilities Committee in our last, not today's meeting, but our last Utilities Committee meeting, we brought forth the point that our tap fees for sewer and water taps, we were actually losing money and those had not been updated since like 2008. So the committee agreed to allow us to bring this forth to council with the new sewer and water tap rates in the new ordinance. And the other Well, the other one we'll get to in a minute. So that's what's in this, just the amended rates for tap fees. That does not affect anybody that already lives in the village. That's going to affect new properties that come in, or somebody wants to buy another tap for their property, but the existing homes and existing taps are not affected by this.
You make mention that the new fee wasn't just arbitrarily picked out of the sky. It was calculated by.
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. These tap fees, basically what has driven this is the fact that we haven't done it for so long. And then during COVID, the supply chain, all the materials that we purchased to make a tap, they've all gone up significantly. So that was all taken into account. Travis Bonar sat with me and we calculated all the cost of the parts that it takes to do a sewer tap, the manpower, labor hours, and that's where these fees came from. And I can tell you, and most of the utilities committee can too, especially Mike, he's familiar with this. We are not out of line. We're still probably not the most expensive tap fees that can be had. So we are very much in line, and this is a way to keep us from losing money.
Mentioned this the last time we were talking about this, and I just want to reemphasize the need for us to not wait so long.
That was discussed in, go ahead.
Yeah, we need that.
He's already done it with this particular topic he's got it on his Outlook calendar that 3 years from now, we'll look at this again. But to take that the next step, we're also, as a project for our next utilities meeting, we decided to just, you're going to, he's going to go ahead and do this with everything, not just tap fees, but with rate
We
fees.
ran into it with the cemetery.
Yeah, and kind of like
Rated
on the
small.
budget committee, we said with salaries, let's just, even if we just did it 2 years, we're going to do it I forget what we decided frequency, but same thing here. So we're going to look at all utility rate prices more periodically instead of just kind of doing a catch-up thing 10 years down the road that's real drastic.
Nobody likes to see a great big
Yeah.
increase when we can do it
Right.
all at a time.
So it was decided every 3 years, I think is the plan, right? Yeah.
So Kelly, if you would read this by title only, please.
This also doesn't have the emergency language.
Does it need to have that? Okay.
These were all made emergency.
This is an emergency ordinance, so Kelly, at the end, we would have, and declaring an emergency.
An ordinance repealing ordinance 1285 and amending and adopting in their entirety chapters 50, 51, 52, and 53 of the Village of Georgetown Municipal Utility Ordinance and declaring an emergency.
Any questions in regard to that? If there are none, we would need to make a motion to approve as amended. By Michael, as amended? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Kelly. So Brian, once again, if you do a roll call.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
It's 13:45.
All right, on our page 62, we're jumping a few here, but on page 62 is a resolution adopting sewer dump station rates. Art, do you wish to go into detail on that, please?
Yeah, this again is another topic that came before the Utilities Committee a few weeks ago, and they approved this tonight. What we're talking about in the fairground, there is a sewer dump station point in the fairgrounds, and for years that has been, for a better term, rented out when there's an event going on in the fairgrounds with a machinery show. They come in, they've been coming in, they would pay $150, and then all the campers that were there for the event would be able to dump into this station and clean out before they left. Well, we've just, after some research here, we realized that there again, our sewer plant operator, Derek Copas, he started calculating this. So this again is not just an arbitrary number. He calculated this based on an average number of campers at each event and the average number of gallons that each camper holds. Our problem here was we weren't making enough to even pay for the chemicals to treat the sewage. So after discussion, we've decided to move the event fee up to $250 per event for for-profit organizations. But the committee felt that there, we do have a lot of nonprofits that do things back there and they give their money away for good causes. So at the same time, if those nonprofits use it and come into the office and get their certificate of use, then there will be no charge for a nonprofit because they're doing, the show back there, they're doing to give away the money. And that's just something the village can do to help them out. But this policy will be enforced by me. We've already, the same book that we use to get yard sale permits, we've already started giving a written permit. So they come in, they pay, they get a carded permit to put back there to know that they're allowed to be using this.
Kelly, could you read this by title only, please?
Resolution adopting rates for the use of the Village of Georgetown sewer dump station.
Questions? Comments?
Do we trust Mr. Copus's ability to do these calculations? I'm just kidding. That was a complete joke.
No. All right, so we would need a motion to approve this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
By Steve, do we have a second? Second by Kelly. Let's do a roll call on that as well, Brian.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
It's 1338.
On a separate piece, you have another ordinance here. I believe everyone has a separate sheet. This is a supplemental appropriation. It's for the Kegs with a Cause. So Kelly, you may want to talk a little bit about this. Is this something you feel comfortable with?
Yeah, absolutely. So the village fronts some of the money up front for some of the expenses for the event and then claims the money back after the event happens. And so there are multiple things this year that we have to pay up front. And we've allotted a couple times, and will be our last allotment to get things paid for this weekend. So, but after the event, they will recoup the money.
Okay. You want to read it by title only,
Sure.
please?
An ordinance making a supplemental appropriation for the Village of Georgetown, Brown County, Ohio.
Questions or comments?
The mayor just asked if this needed to be an emergency as well, and the answer is no, because it's an appropriation. We passed that ordinance right after the charter was passed that says one reading.
Okay, very good. All right. Any comments or questions? If not, we would need a motion to adopt.
Make the motion.
We got two, and we got Mike. Nancy would be second.
That's
Let's do a
fine.
roll call vote on that.
Kelly,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
It's 1346.
Good. In your packet on page 63 is our payment listings. Art is here. Natalie, of course, is not here with us tonight, but if there's questions about any of these billing statements, Art may be able to shed light on them. If not, we can always get back to Natalie for these questions. If there are none, we will move on. If you come to some, we can ask them here a little bit later. On page 65 is the bank reconciliation statement. And once again, any questions there, we can address those with Natalie. On page 66 is our fund summary report with all the line items that the village has in force. Again, these are all good questions to ask Art or Natalie.
Okay, I've got one just because
Yes.
I've stared at it for a long time and wondered. So under what scenario does the village pay for somebody's indigent alcohol treatment?
That's I think they can, the chief could probably address that better.
Using that fund.
Okay,
It hasn't been tapped, that's for sure. That's a new one on me. I don't know when that one came into play.
okay, well, we can get that answer later.
Yeah, I think that's a
Not-
better.
not-
I would assume like if we have somebody that, the magistrate mandates an alcohol treatment for.
Okay.
Wait, are you referring to indigent defense?
No, indigent alcohol treatment there.
Where are you at?
It's been there, that line's been there for a long time.
I think that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that either.
We'll get an answer for you, Steve. Okay, any other questions? If not, then we will go to the payment register details on page 67. These are the credit card purchases that were made since the last one produced. Questions in regard to those, we can go on to the police report. Chief?
So as always, I have my monthly statistics, since these are. Offenses that we dealt with, I better turn that on. The kind of type of offenses we dealt with in June as well. And of course, then you got your mayor's court report. I do have a few things I wanted to talk about. First off, I want to thank council for allowing me to move out of the village. So those of you that don't know, I recently got engaged to a very kind and beautiful lady. So that's going to help me start my new life. So I do very much appreciate that. One of the first things I want to talk about is on the evening of June the 12th, Patrolman Luther and Rosno responded to the party place on Home Street in reference to a subject refusing to leave and that was bothering the customers, basically panhandling on top of that. Upon arrival, they came in contact with a Uri Watson. Watson is a homeless individual, which we have been receiving complaints on almost daily. The staff advised that Mr. Watson was asking both customers and staff for money and or alcohol and had been told to leave repeatedly. Mr. Watson was told to leave the property and not return. Watson then went to Dollar General, where management advised they did not want Watson on their property as well. As Watson was being advised of this, Deputy Sheriff Enlow arrived on the scene to serve Mr. Watson subpoenas on another matter. Watson argued and refused to accept the paperwork, allowing it to fall to the ground. After this, Watson walked directly back to the party place and entered the store. Watson was again confronted by Patrolman Luther and Rosno and advised that he was under arrest. A short foot chase ensued, and Watson was tackled to the ground by Deputy Enlow in the yard by People's Bank. Watson continued to fight with officers and was finally tased and taken into custody. Watson has been charged with criminal trespass, resisting arrest, obstructing official business. Deputy Enlow did obtain an injury during the scuffle and was charged. So Watson was also charged with assault on a peace officer as well. And Mr. Watson is still in jail at this time. On June the 18th, Sergeant Green and Patrolman Ramel and Deputy Johnson responded to a residence on South Main Street for a suspicious man on the front porch yelling and had broken the window in the front door. Upon arrival, officers found Joseph Cox lying on the sidewalk with a laceration to his hand. Officers spoke with the homeowners who advised that they did not know Mr. Cox or why he was there. They stated that he would beat on the door and lay on the ground and roll around and get back up and beat on the door again, finally breaking the glass out of the door. He admitted to using cocaine before the incident took place and was convinced that people were out to get him. The Life Squad treated Mr. Cox for his injuries, and he has been charged with criminal damaging and disorderly conduct. On June 29th, Patrolman Hunnicky and Fetters and the Georgetown Fire Department responded to Vine Street for a garage fire. The fire department was able to quickly put the flames out, and the fire marshal's office was contacted. About a week later, Patrolman Hunnicky spoke with the fire marshal, who suspected that the fire was arson. They also suspected that a teen from the household was responsible. The fire marshal's office questioned the teen, but did not have any luck with a confession. On July 8th, Patrolman Hunnicky brought the juvenile in for questioning and was able to obtain a confession. And he had started a small fire, basically that he had started a small fire in the garage, but believed he had put it out. Arson charges are now pending on the juvenile court. And before the meeting, I handed everybody, it looks like a bunch of jumbled numbers on some legal sheets there. I also gave you, this is the results of the online survey that we put out for the public. 54 people chose to take the survey. It went until the 30th of last month. Basically, I've changed the ratings of the lowest being not at all to very much, through a 1 through 5, 5 being the highest as the very much. I put those in a spreadsheet, and if you go to the third page with the colored graphic there, those were our final averages in those categories. If you use the survey paper that I gave you, it has the numbered questions, and then you basically compare that to question 1, question 2 on the spreadsheet that I gave you. I also have this spreadsheet, which this may be kind of hard to read, so I will forward the spreadsheet that I created to everybody. And then the second part of that is where people had the opportunity to actually write their own responses. That was kind of hard to put into a category, so I just printed them out. So you have some good, some bad, some indifferent, but they are what they are. So I just so you know, me purposely, I did not take the survey myself. I thought that would be kind of self-serving. But I believe that's all I have.
Questions for the chief?
I'd like to make a comment. if I
Go
can.
ahead.
The chief's report there, Mr. Yuri Watson, he's talking about, and the reason I'm saying this is because we get a lot of calls about Mr. Watson. And we get I've had a lot of questions, why don't you guys do something? Why don't the police department do something? But let me tell you what goes on with this guy. When they do have something legal that they can arrest him on, they do. He goes and he serves his time and he comes back on the streets here. I can tell you firsthand that the police department, myself, I know another employee here, and some people in the public, we've all offered this gentleman some help. We've all offered clothing. We've offered to find shelter. We've offered to get him back to family members where he came from. But our hands are tied. If somebody like this doesn't want the help, we can't force it upon them. So, like I said, I've had quite a few people call about this guy. And I assure you, the police department's doing everything that they can do legally to help him. And when he commits a crime, he goes and stays in the jail for a month or 2, and he's back out on the streets, and this is where he wants to remain. So don't think that the village isn't doing something, because everybody has offered and a lot of residents have offered.
This is going to sound terrible, but the reason why he wants to be here is because we're a good community, and we have people here that want to help, and he's more than happy to accept the help. So at this point, he's taking advantage of people. So I just want people to keep that in the back of their mind.
Separately, can I make a quick comment? And this might come across as picky. I'm going to do it real quick, but I want to head off if there's any concerns about this. If you are looking at Chief Freeland's report, if you put the staple in the upper left-hand corner and go to what I would call then page 5, Chief Freeland did a really good job with making sure that that people weren't bombing the survey and all that kind of stuff. One thing I did notice, and I think I got this figured out, is that the same IP address is repeated 3 times in the survey.
What I was told on that from the gentleman that helped me put this online,
Right.
is that could be somebody at multiple people like at a public Wi-Fi,
Right.
like the library, McDonald's, things like that.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If anybody thinks that
Yeah.
the deck is being stacked here, if you notice, the results are distinctly different. So I would just want to say that I feel that this has got integrity and it's worth keeping that data in there, because I don't think it's somebody bombing it. I think it's somebody doing exactly what you said.
You can actually, I mean, as a layman, you can Google
Yeah.
these IP addresses.
You can.
It'll give you it'll tell you who the ISP is, basically the internet provider. So, I mean, I actually did it just for fun. And I mean, you could see where people was probably at work in Cincinnati and did it, you know? So
I just don't want
they're going to
anybody,
be all over the place.
yeah, I just don't want anybody interpreting that as a deck stacking move.
But that's a good point, Rob, that with the IPs, that's not specifically identifiable to a person.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
And that's a good point. People might wonder about that, but it's not.
Anything else for the police
I just,
report?
I'm going to say one more thing on that report. You know, doing this survey was a recommendation of the police assessment of Sue Madsen. And so the officers put this out. And, you know, I just want to restate I guess I just want to say congratulations, because if one's the worst score and 5's the best, I guess I would be a little nervous if they just got all 5s everywhere. It's like, do you guys ever arrest anybody or do anything? You know, and if it were all 1s, it's like, are you just making everybody? So I think your target score with that in mind would be about a 4. You know, is probably what you would expect an outstanding police department to be doing. And lo and behold, if you average these up, if you take off the person who gave a 1 in every category, probably somebody you arrested a few weeks ago or something, and take off one of the 5s, it's all 5s, you know, and you do the mean average of everything that's left, you get a 3.99, you're right there at 4. So I think the community has spoken that they're well pleased with our police department. Thank you.
Anything else for the chief's report? If not, he briefly mentioned Mayor's Court. Mayor's Court is up this year. You could look at that in 2 ways. Either we're collecting more money or a lot more crime is being committed in the community.
You can look at it both ways.
Well, that may be true. That may be true.
Do we have to continually apply to the state to get the money back, like from tax refunds and that?
I think
Or
the
they do
hardest
it-
part of that was the initial setup, and now
They can automatically. do
I
it?
think it's a very easy process for Hannah at this point. But I know the initial setup was a
Yeah,
little tricky, but yeah.
it's a good thing.
Also, Councilmember Wolf, you asked about the indigent treatment fund. I checked that. That is actually funds that we actually receive in our mayor's court from the state. And so we had to have somewhere to deposit that. And it's a state required fund. So that's why that exists. So how we would use it in the future is really probably up to our magistrate. But just be aware that those are not funds we segregated. We received them from the state mental health.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll move on then. Art, do you have a report to give?
I just wanted to say one more thing. Earlier this week, our utilities office in the back, to their credit, they caught a counterfeit $100 bill. Luckily, you know, we've got cameras back there. They were able to pinpoint. It was totally accidental, and the person that brought it here. They received it getting change from something else. But just to let everybody know, we are instituting a new system back there. We've ordered some machines that kind of look like credit card machines, and you can stick a whole stack of bills or one at a time. But we will be checking our money now through a machine that will instantly tell you that it's counterfeit or not. I mean, we were lucky that the ink pen worked on this, but there's some people that have figured out a way to get past the pen now. But just so you know, there could be some other counterfeit money floating around town.
Those cameras on the counters have definitely helped out, actually
Yeah.
several times.
Anything else, Art?
No.
Okay,
Can I ask,
yes.
I like the reports, Art, that we get from the utilities, all the different departments. Could we get, and I think we've asked for this before, a monthly report on the zoning and code enforcement? We've only had one this year.
Well,
So-
I think that's not his fault, honestly, and I said that before. I didn't do a report with you guys a few times when I was off sick, so.
Well, you know, Derek Wise just emails them to us. So maybe that's something someone
Okay,
could
all right,
do
yeah.
if they want to just email them to us. But that's one of the top complaints I hear
I'd like to
And,
add something to that too, if you don't care.
No.
While you're at that, I hear a lot of complaints about that as well. And it's been brought to my attention, why don't we get that report from Jason Hammond as well? That's $3,000 of our tax dollars go out every month to pay him. So we probably should know what's going on in that realm. I know sitting here in council, I don't know what he does,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm sure the rest of the people in the community would like to know.
Well, you asked me that before and
Right.
I dropped the ball on it, so that's my fault, not
Yeah,
his.
that's, I just wanted to bring
Yeah.
it back up. While she mentioned that, I
Yeah.
thought, well,
Anything else for the administrator? If not, we'll move on.
Thank you, Mayor. And at this point, if it pleases the mayor, I would move that we go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121-22G1, to discuss the compensation of an employee.
We have that motion out there. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Steve. Let's do a roll call vote, Brian.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Steve,
yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And if I would ask, please, that Captain Staggs and Chief Freeland would not be in this meeting at this point in